Hi YouTube, this is a Yasuo pressure structure guide for the 1.0 early access build. I noticed a lack of resource directly covering Yasuo's tools and pressure, and felt like this would be helpful to budding Yasuo players who haven't gotten their bearings yet. There's a couple of things that I want to go over, but there are timestamps just in case you want to skip around. I'm Ensho, I hate Grandmasters exclusively playing Yasuo, and I want to present everything that I currently know about Yasuo. So first, I feel like I should quickly address what changed from closed beta to 1.0 for Yasuo's pressure structure in particular. He received a couple changes. Yasuo's stance light has received some frame data changes. He used to be +0 on block, but now he is -2. Yasuo used to have this frame trap out of stance light for big bodies, with stance light into standing light, and Yasuo would win because his mash is slightly faster. But now, similarly to the non-big bodies in closed beta, he'll now trade with the same interaction. Your situation into non-big bodies is going to be worse now. You're going to be -2, which means that you have a chance to lose your offense by trying to steal your turn back with your mash light. There are workarounds to this, namely stance Kara back short hop, or cross up, or stance heavy if you're absolutely sure that they'll mash, and maybe you'll get a wall slump out of it. In other changes, your light is slightly less advantageous on block, but you can still run stagger pressure, but it's slightly easier to call out now. Your medium and your S1 are now slower, and especially your S1, so don't whiff it, you're more prone to being punished. Now I want to go over Yasuo's stance options. The better you're able to internalize Yasuo's stance options, the better you'll become at leveraging his kit made to overwhelm opponents and topple their mental stack. In stance, Yasuo's normal buttons turn into 3 distinct attacks: stance light, stance medium, stance heavy, stance down heavy. Yasuo's special buttons are linked to movement options: stance S1, stance short hop. Yasuo can also move forward or move backwards, both cancelling the stance. Yasuo can access strike throw at virtually any part of his block string, so being able to threaten grab a lot makes his pressure very scary as well. Oftentimes, Yasuo will link up his forward or backwards dash with a stance option, because there's a window where Yasuo is still considered in stance while he's moving. It can be useful when he's looking for something like S1, which would cross up. Normally it wouldn't cross up at this distance, but if we were to add a dash in between, it would cross up no problem. Same principle applies to short hop. When Yasuo is too far, Yasuo can dash forward a bit, and then run his mix. Stance light is a pressure reset that allows you to more safely access your normals again. It's useful when you want to stuff a mash and you're late into your block string. It's also useful if you don't want to commit to stance heavy, which gets beaten by jump. Though after the changes, you should be considerate of the situation that comes after stance light. Stance medium is exclusively a combo tool. You do not need to worry about this during pressure. Stance heavy is a useful button to continue your block string after opponents are a considerable distance. Although due to how committal the button is, I would dissuade using it as a primary option against mashing. I would delegate it more to a reactive button you can use to react to opponent options after your initial block string. As for your stance special options, I feel like that these are the options that have the most sauce, but tend to be the most riskiest to go for. Yasuo's stance S1, when paired with an assist, gets you sandwich mix. Very strong. Your stance S2 forces a double 50-50. One on the initial short hop, and the next one, if Yasuo chooses high the first time, he can choose double high, or he can choose high-low, and in addition to that, you can choose nothing at all into a grab, or you can choose low first. There's a lot that Yasuo can do from this position, and honestly I feel like it's his sauciest option. Mind that all the aforementioned options are options from stance. These are all the tools that you have after your normal pressure, which can have a degree of variance in itself, right? Running stagger pressure or strike throw can be very strong even before you're forced to go into your stance options. So you should mind that you're bogged down by having no explicit overhead option until you have access to your stance. So during pressure, Yasuo is reliant on stagger pressure, strike throw, and access to left-right. Also, an aside, If you're not sure how your opponent reacts on your block strings, do a check and just wait. Yasuo is privileged enough to have easy answers to almost anything with all of his buttons, and over the course of a match, you may notice how your opponent cycles through their defensive options. Also mind that this is all just Yasuo solo pressure. Your assist can largely skip the defensive guessing game and easily transition into them guessing their life with your 4-way pressure from a sandwich. So now I want to go over opponent defensive options, because during your block strings you'll find that you have to largely work around their 4 primary defense options. They can mash, they can jump, they can retreat and guard, and they can push block. Mashing tends to be the most common since Yasuo's stance dash is intoxicating to do. Mashing can be called out with frame traps such as light heavy, committally with stance heavy, or non-committally with the help of an assist. Jump can be met on reaction, and it can be anti-aired, or be grabbed. Or you can continue the block string if you happen to choose something like short hop. Retreating guard unfortunately needs to be met with 4 diagonal heavy or 3H, but if you do catch the retreating guard, you get a full punish. Push block is probably the hardest option to deal with since they can use it at any point in your block string, so it takes a little bit of intuition to have the foresight to react to it. But if you do have the foresight, you can preemptively mash and use a movement option to continue your block string. Or you can just use an assist to cover you. So staying grounded here with all of these defensive options. When opponents are mashing, we can use frame traps, we can utilize our stance attacks, or we can try and dodge their normals, or you can use assist to avoid the whole guessing game. For jumpers, you can meet them in the air with any button, or you can choose to go for the anti-air. Into retreating guard, you're forced to use your sweep, and push block, you have to anticipate a little bit, but try your best to keep your block string. Assists are particularly useful for this. Mind that when using an assist, you largely don't have to deal with opponent defensive options other than push block. You also have a cross attack, which functions pretty similarly to your stance cross up, but the difference is one has a hitbox, which could be useful for situations where they like to delay mash like this, and when you're to cross up, normally it wouldn't really work, right? Your opponent will adapt their defensive options throughout your set according to what you commonly represent or perform during your block string. You can throw one interaction, so you can bait them to mash the next. Your understanding of opponent defensive habits is paramount. So some closing remarks. Yasuo is a demanding champion that rewards you immensely for meeting his execution requirement. He can be very exhausting to pilot when first starting out, but you unlock so many different options and answers when fully realizing his kit. If things seem really rough right now when using him, I encourage you to keep pushing through because it does get easier over time. For those having lots of trouble knowing what options to choose, assuming opponent defensive options aren't a problem, try to find a cross up when your assist is up, and try to find stance short hop when your assist isn't up. And you can do this for as long as your opponent lets you get away with it. Otherwise, it can be valuable to threaten throw or stance light a lot to out your opponent's defensive inclinations and react to them accordingly.